let me pick up with Dr. Hayes' comments with respect to ACEs. And if you look at the Supreme Court cases having to do with the trial or handling of juveniles in adult court, and the sentences imposed, life without parole in the Graham case, one of the things the courts touched on there is that how do you represent effectively someone who is not yet matured? They are charged. There's no such thing when it's first-degree murder or robbery or whatever. There's nothing in the states committed by someone under the age of 18. You're like everybody else. When you come in at 17 years of age on first-degree murder or robbery, whatever it is, there's no such thing as a little footnote in that indictment that reads, note, the accused is under the age of, you're equal straight across the board. And as far as counsel is concerned, and it's good to see that the Supreme Court has taken note of this, how in the world do you really represent effectively somebody who's flunked out of school, never had any guidance whatsoever? I don't care what a great job you do, it's very difficult. The last murder case I represented was, I think he was maybe 16, robbed a drug dealer. And, fortunately the victim was a drug dealer, and even his own kinfolks didn't like him. Nobody showed up. They had to run an ad to get folks to come claim the body. Just kidding about that. But there are people like that in today's society. So I got a sweetheart offer for him, and right at the moment that the judge was about to say, I find you guilty, he said, I'm not taking it. The thing, most defense lawyers, we walk around like this because our clients yank on our coat all the time, say, I'm changing my mind. So I said, wait a minute. I asked the judge, can we go outside and talk a minute? And I said, what's wrong? Haven't I done everything you wanted me to do? Didn't I talk to your witnesses? Didn't I? What is it? He said, I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to take it. I'm going to trial. I said, what? I said, you've given 10 statements, your cousin testifying against you, your mom's testifying, everybody. You're not going to take it? No, I'm not going to take it. Why aren't you going to take it? Listen, this is what he told me. He said, I really wouldn't have had to have done that. But the dude just wouldn't listen to me. I said, what do you mean he wouldn't listen to you? What happened is he and his colleagues had decided they were going to rob the drug dealer. They called him to a location where they knew there was a big fence behind the location, and that if the guy tried to run, he couldn't get over that fence. 2 shotgun houses, they had him hemmed in. So sure enough, they walked up and said they want to buy his drugs, and then whipped out a pistol and said, drop it off. And so the guy knocked him out of the way and takes off running, not knowing that he couldn't get over the fence back there. So they caught up with him, told him to stop, but he didn't. They shot him. He's on the ground. The first bullet did not kill him. He's on the ground. They keep telling him, don't get up, give us some money, but the guy kept trying to get up. So they killed him. He said, I shouldn't have to take this. And I said, why shouldn't you have to take this? He said, look, the dude should have listened to me. I kept telling him, don't get up. Don't get up. And he just wouldn't listen to me. So I had to shoot him. I give that, and it sounds somewhat comical, but here I am with all of my degrees and all of my experience, and I'm trying to get him to understand. But he was a product of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. His value system that had been drilled into him at age 16 was totally foreign to that the judge, the jury would have had, the prosecutors, even me as his lawyer. And this is why we really ought to give a lot of attention to ACEs. Look over it. You'll see we've done a lot in Shelby County on this. Let me tell you what my perspective is. I was a defense lawyer for many years, tried a lot of things, didn't really make any progress there in terms of moving the ball. I was mayor for any number of years, and criminal defendants just kept coming and just kept coming. We kept hiring sheriff deputies, we kept hiring police officers, and they just kept coming. So in my older years, I said, finally, hey, we got to do something else. We're never going to hire enough police officers, build enough juvenile detention centers, build enough jails. We got to do something. I'll say that to society as a whole. There's no way in the world we can tax and build ourselves out of this. We've got to get back to dealing with this. Much of this is a repeat of what Dr. Hayes has pointed out. Some of the slides are almost the same. If you look at the bottom where all these things start out and they end up, we have up at the top their death, but on the way to death, there's court, there's jail, there's alcoholism, and so many other things. And those of you who've defended a number of individuals, I see Ms. Turner, a public defender back there, she knows that this is a product that we see every day. Again, this is simply another authority on the fact how trauma almost invariably lends itself or leads to justice involvement, certainly juvenile justice involvement. I was also asked to touch on the civil rights aspect of it. Now, this is kind of out of sync, but I'll hit it here. The last study I saw, there are about 5.3 million individuals coming into this election who cannot vote because they've been disenfranchised because of court convictions. And when we heard the discussion this morning with respect to fines and fees, that's something I'm trying to build a lawsuit on. To get your voting rights restored, you got to pay that expungement fee. That has not been attacked yet. I talked to the folks from the Art City Defenders this morning. It seems to stand to reason, and it was Bodie v. Connecticut that said you cannot bar access from divorce court merely because the person cannot pay the filing fee. You can get it on the back end. Since the only way you can get your rights back to vote, how can you tell me that I can't even file my petition in Tennessee if you don't have at least, they'll take an installment on it, you got to have $450 just to file your petition. So that's something that's ripe for challenges. I'm hoping to challenge that. This is why there's so much division in society. We've got 5.3 million people who, for the sole reason they've been convicted of a felony, and in some places misdemeanors, cannot vote. There's a slide in there later on. One of my sons had a case about 2 weeks ago. A 20-year-old young black man went with my son in federal court. It was a robbery, but in the Western District, that's also considered a Hobbs Act violation, so they end up in federal court. It was a botched robbery, still a bad situation. He confessed. He's 20 years old. He goes to court. My son's explaining him what it means to be convicted of a felony offense. And when he got down to the point of voting, the young man said, "You mean," he said, "when is all this going to become effective?" He said, "The minute the judge signs that paper in there." He said, "Well, gee whiz, I haven't voted yet." His mother's with him. She's confined to a wheelchair. He said, "My mom's going to kill me." He was more concerned about what his mother was going to do than he was doing this time in federal court, because she had always drilled in him, you have to vote. Well, he was at 16 at the last election, so he didn't get to vote. But he definitely wanted to vote this time. So he said to my son, "I have got to vote." He said, my son said, "Well, you've got an offer. We can't decline this offer." He said, "I've got to vote." So my son went back inside and fortunately, we had a very enlightened U.S. attorney and a very enlightened judge. And he said, "Judge, we need a continuance." The judge said, "How long?" My son said, "About 30 minutes. He said, 30 minutes? I need a 30-minute continuance. He said, "Judge, my client needs to go vote." Fortunately, the judge used to work for me as an assistant public defender and was a prosecutor, very enlightened. The U.S. attorney did not object, so my son took his mom in her wheelchair. They walked across the street there to the voting precinct. He cast his vote and then came back and took his medicine. I mention that because we somehow paint all of these criminal defendants as just no good, nothing can ever come out of them, they've rejected society, consequently let's just make sure they can't even vote. I mean, this kid was burning up inside. It's a long, long story. This ought to be a movie. He took part in the robbery because he lost his disability payments he was getting because of his dependent payments because of his mom's disability. Had to drop out of community college, trying to get his tuition. Hey, got hooked up on this, here's a quick way to get your tuition, and downhill, but he took responsibility for that. I mention that because we really need to look at the civil rights implications of what we're doing and how do these defendants get there, which goes back to the ACEs. Let me fast forward into what we're doing. I'm not going to get into the cases. I'm doing this presentation elsewhere. If you look at the U.S. Sentencing Guidelines, it states there's no reason for departure because of lack of guidance, but it does mention some of the background considerations. But if you look at the Supreme Court cases, unfortunately, all of them in terms of death penalty, life without the possibility of parole, all of that comes on the back end. That's too late then. So what should we in society do on the front end? And that's what I wanted to touch on. What we're doing in Memphis, it hasn't been done anywhere else. First of all, look at who's being arrested there. These are not old folks. There they are right there. You probably can't see it, but just in the city of Memphis alone, under 18 last year, 3,654. Age 18 to 24, 5,036. Bottom line is the best of our society in terms of productivity is being shut out of society at a very early age. And that's unfair, unfortunate on both ends. First of all, unless they look at ACEs, we don't consider how they got there. And then secondly, on the back end, we don't look at what they're going to do after they complete that, complete their sentence, and we end up paying the cost for it. So what we have done, first of all, is we did our own survey. And anything I get involved in, when it comes to this, I like to look at it in terms of how will I be able to walk into court, put on an expert, and have it under the federal standards and the state standards accepted as expert opinion, which ought to impact the sentencing. What we have done as a premise for that, as a foundation for that, we conducted our own ACE survey right in our county. You're not going to get anywhere with the judge getting up telling him or her about what they did in Berkeley and Massachusetts, but come back to your town and show what you have there. 52% of the folks in the city of Memphis and Shelby County had been exposed to what we call ACEs. Now that doesn't mean somebody hollered at them one time. We mean on a chronic basis before it reaches the level of what we call toxic stress. And that includes, it could be domestic violence, it could be sexual abuse, it could be someone, a close family member who's been incarcerated, mom's been in jail. Kiana, Miss, you heard her just this morning, and I don't want to get too personal with her, but look what her children were going through. That has to have an impact. You'd be surprised at how stressed so many families are, particularly when there's an overlay of poverty on top of all of that. So we've done that in our county. So eventually when we use this in court, it will be local information, local experts telling the judge, this is what we're doing here. Why is that important? Not only from the standpoint of Daubert and all the other standards for expert testimony, but from the standpoint of the Supreme Court language and what is the community consensus. And that's what I hope as we leave this place today. You're not going to walk out of here and win one case because of something you heard here. But for the sake of our profession, we have to begin to change the community consensus by pioneering and plowing new ground that we've not done before. Eventually, the courts, if the Supreme Court, as conservative as is now, has already said things like life without parole for juveniles, death penalty. If we come back and begin to apply those things on the front end and impact our state legislative bodies or whatever, that's how we'll make progress. But it has to be a very deliberate step. You've got to be scientific in it. We've done that. Again, I will not get into all of the details. Here's the first action step, and this is the kind of work I'm doing now. You know, it's good to get paid for doing things you really love to do. I've got two dream jobs. One, I got to put in the plug for St. Jude Children's Hospital. I might have a pin for you. I help them raise money, and then I'm doing this for children. We've created an ACE Awareness Foundation, and basically all I'm doing now is going to doctors. We've got all our hospitals cooperating to let folks know about this, and we're going to we'll have consensus around what we're trying to do. And one of the really unique things that we've done, we have what we call universal parenting places. We have 3 that operate from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. We have what we call a warm line when parents, and look, let me just tell you this on a personal note. I've raised 6 boys. My wife and I have all sorts of careers, but there are times, folks, when I didn't know what in the hell I was doing. Imagine that. I mean, imagine some single parent who's under all sorts of stresses, and you got it's 10:30 at night, 9 o'clock, and you got a 14-year-old boy who's smelling his pee, and he's ruling the world, and you don't know. You just think the best thing I can do is just kill him. Can't do that, though. But what in the world do you do? We now have actual warm lines. We call them warm lines, a real person there, psychologists, counselors, therapists, who can pick up that phone. We call them universal parenting places. And we actually will write what we call, get prescriptions for them. They have centers. It's non-judgmental. It's without regard to income. It's no such thing as this is just something for poor people. We know these stresses are in all of our homes. We'll have 6 of these centers throughout the city and county in the very near future. Again, it's non-judgmental. And the final thing that we're doing, as Dr. Hayes has pointed out, it has to be treated as a medical situation. Fortunately, we have a very enlightened governor, and he has picked this up, has a statewide initiative called Building Strong Brains. So what we hope to do is to get it eligible for reimbursement under our Medicaid plan. In other words, the counseling intervention that these children need, you'll simply write a, quote, prescription, close quote. It won't call for Ritalin, Adderall, all that. It will be a prescription to one of the centers, and then they'll be reimbursed just as if the individual went to a physician's office. Have I stayed within my 15 minutes? I know I covered. Oh, I had 3 minutes left. Well. I know I jumped around a lot, but I said I would move rapidly to keep you awake. So with that, I will get out of the way and I'll yield back my time. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Okay, we are gonna, even though we started 15 minutes late, we're gonna stay with